Hey, everybody. Wanted to thank you all again for joining today. I'm excited to have our second ever webinar in the new series for Outside the Session. Today, we're going to be focused on topics for HR. But overall, really Outside the Session is about helping ABA practice owners like yourselves and admin staff manage the business side of running a practice. In general, we cover a large range of topics. A few weeks ago, we did Marketing 101. Today, we're going to be talking about HR best practices, but we also have other topics coming up in the future related to finance, legal items, insurance audits, the whole gambit of everything that goes into everything that happens again outside the session, as the name implies. Today, we're going to be focused on hiring, retaining talent, building a strong team culture, and all the components that go into running your practice from an HR perspective. So a couple of housekeeping items before we begin, and then I turn it over to Robyn. The webinar is being recorded, just so everyone's aware, and I'll be sending out a copy of the recording as well as our slide deck that we're going over today afterwards. So feel free to take notes if you'd like to, but just know that we're going to send you out a copy of this recording and the slide deck. Also, I wanted to just mention before we get going that, as I said earlier, there's a whole upcoming schedule of related items. So if you have questions about legal items, insurance audits, negotiating contract rates, finance items, just check out our calendar. I'll be sending it out in the chat. But there's going to be a whole host of upcoming webinars as well. So I encourage you guys to check that out if you haven't already. Lastly, we're going to have a Q&A at the end. So I will do my best, but I'll defer to Robyn. We're going to be answering your questions after the session. So feel free to type them into the chat or put them in the Q&A, and we'll answer those as they come through. But without further ado, I want to introduce today our speaker. It's Robyn Rodriguez. She is the founder and chief people officer at Her HR Help Desk, and she's a dedicated HR professional. So she's going to be a fantastic speaker to talk about, again, the topics for today, which are best practices for hiring, which we all know is a major challenge right now in the ABA world, both for the behavior technicians as well as BCBAs and staff. And then how do we retain those team members once we get them? And then how do we build a strong team culture to make it a fantastic place to work where people are happy in the workplace and also brand ambassadors of our business. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you, Robyn, to take us away. Thanks.
Great. Thanks so much for having me today, Adam. I really appreciate it. Thanks to you and the Aloha team. I'm just going to jump right in. I do have a lot of information to cover in a short period of time, but I wanted to be sure that I'm giving you ABA leaders really the best value in this webinar. So like Adam said, I'll be going a little bit fast and furious. We'll be sending out the deck, and then I'll open it up to Q&A once we're done with the slides. So if questions come to mind, pop them in the chat, and then we'll address them towards the end of the call. So like I said, let's get into it. My name is Robyn Rodriguez. I'm a senior professional in HR. I am the founder and chief people officer of Her HR Help Desk. I do help everybody, but I am focused on supporting female leaders in the C-suite in their businesses. So I did a big women's program at UT Austin when I first moved to Austin, Texas, and that kind of blends my passion together. I also mentor young women in the Austin area. So I have over 20 years of experience in payroll and HR. I try to be fun, and I like to say I'm cool HR, but I like taking modern approaches to the HR world. Also, I've worked with other ABA centers. That's how I'm connected with Aloha. I have worked with mental health professionals and other therapy practices. So, sometimes we'll talk today about the challenges that exist for clinical hiring and clinical employees versus administrative employees, because there is a big difference of how we hire, retain, turnover, see how some of those things look. So the first thing is what are some of the biggest challenges you face today? This is coming from all of these webinars that I do in meeting with clients and working with them in their employee base and seeing where there's really a disconnect. So I highlighted some of those here, hoping that some of these resonate with you, and then we'll talk about what the challenges are. So lack of clear communication, ineffective delegation of duties, insufficient recognition when employees feel like they're not being recognized, right? Sometimes the bane of our existence with some of the different generational mindsets in the workforce today. Recruiting and retaining employees, especially important, in your world, like Adam just mentioned. Lack of motivation and engagement. We get people working for you and they start to burn out. They start working slower and they're not just performing as they did when they first got there. Supervisor support, which we'll get into. As you know, when you have field employees, it's really critical. That key role in your company to keep your team motivated and keep them going is going to be that support of that supervisor, that middle manager, who is kind of like the air traffic controller for your company. Limited resources. I think this is also time and money. So today I'm going to talk about some solutions, and not everything is involved in you spending money on your company. I know it's hard to believe that. We're always thought to believe that we have to invest thousands of dollars into something to get an ROI, but we will talk about ways that you as a smaller firm can kind of compete with the big people and what some of those key advantages are for you. Unclear expectations and goals. We see this all the time, that we get so busy working in the business, not working on our business, or our supervisors are busy and we're not setting clear expectations and goals that set the employee group up for success. So if any of these are sitting with you and not feeling good, I hear you. I hope you have a nice cup of coffee. Later on, you can have wine about it. But these are challenges that a lot of business owners are facing in today's competitive job market. One of the things I think is important is communication styles in your business. And this is from the bottom to the top. This is your scheduling team. This is your admin staff. This is your clinical staff and how you communicate. And what I'm seeing in today's market, again, with different types of generations that are working, we have a lot of passive-aggressive communication styles happening. And then once people get frustrated, we have this aggressive communication style. And really in today's world, this empathy is playing such a big role in work and the future of work. Like Adam said, creating this great culture. Like, how do we communicate in a positive and effective way to get to results immediately? Because a lot of times when I'm doing employee coachings or, talking through issues or terminations, and I'm doing the exit interviews, I'm seeing that there's a lot of talking around issues instead of talking directly at issues. And especially when you have field employees, this is big for you guys to address communication in this assertive style. So that's all the way to the right. And this is also important for your supervisors to have this assertive communication style. I recently helped an ABA therapy center because supervisors just did not feel comfortable writing people up. And we changed the format to making that a coaching session where there was a little bit more positive reinforcement and a little bit more understanding around communicating assertively and talking directly at the issue without talking down to the person or being aggressive or coming from this state of frustration and writing them up and then them being discouraged and leaving the company, right? Also, so here, the biggest thing to me on this assertive style is understanding that we both have wants and needs that need to be met. That is a critical key factor in today's workplace. The old style, I think it's like, well, you're working for me. I have this job. I'm loyal to my employer. Now we're seeing employees quit immediately. There's no 2-week notice. There's not a lot of loyalty. Maybe some of you have experienced that. They thought they were coming into one thing and another thing happened and they left your company. And so it really is resetting the tone where we understand that it's a double-sided street. Employers need to give to their employees and vice versa. In return, we expect that the job's being done, but we want to make a great environment for them to do that. So again, assertive communication, calling out that we both have wants and needs, and those can clearly be expressed and met in the workplace. Jumping right into our first topic, I kind of picked the 4 topics I kept hearing in the ABA world as I talked to, other practitioners and therapy center owners. And we know the top one is recruiting employees. So just if you're having a hard time, I just want to let you know, you're not alone. You probably know that. But ABA therapists are high in demand in California, Texas, Florida, New York, and Massachusetts. California and Texas being the highest, of course. And if you're in one of these territories, it is going to be more important to you than it is to anybody else, because that means there's a lot of options in this space. There's a lot of turnover in these markets. And so the next section is we'll talk about retaining employees, but recruiting employees in these markets are going to be especially difficult. Again, the market's competitive today. And if you're a smaller employer, how do you stand out against, going to a bigger employer? What do you do? It is a competitive job market related to pay, people moving, employees referring, hey, I'm working at this company. There's a better culture over here. You should come over here if you don't like your manager over there. And then again, going back to expectations, really setting clear expectations of the role and ensuring candidates are confident they can perform the role. I think this is really important, especially when you're hiring somebody that has not worked in the role before, in these entry level kind of roles, their foot in the door, making sure that if you have a recruiter or whoever on the team is recruiting employees, that you are very clear about the glamorous and the non-glamorous things that happen at the company. Because I worked with a firm, they had a recruiter, and the recruiter was selling the dream, but wasn't clear that sometimes these kids can be challenging to work with. The parents are emotional, and we did not equip those candidates up for success. And there was a very high turnover rate within the first 90 days because that recruiter wasn't setting clear expectations. When we reset that a little, we had people say, I don't know that I'm really interested right now. I'll think about it and get back to you. But honestly, it saved us so much time and money on the back end to really recruit people that truly were invested in serving the community in a different way and those kiddos in a different way, and they could commit and perform. So really one thing, again, what we talk about for solutions around recruiting employees, building a strong employer brand to attract candidates. What does that mean? It just means it's kind of your reputation, right? Having a good reputation that people want to work with you, that your employees go home and say, hey, I like working for this company. It's not always, fantastic, but it's great. It's solid. I love these things. Just having a solid reputation, especially if you are getting slammed on Glassdoor, or, there's bad word of mouth around your company, you're going to have to invest a little bit more time and energy into creating this employer brand and reinvesting in that so that you can attract candidates. So that's a big one. Leveraging multiple recruitment channels. This is kind of hard, again, if you don't have 20 people, you say, hey, Robyn, I don't have 20 people that are recruiting for my company. But in essence, if you think about it, going to job fairs, trade schools, those are things that you're also at the same time building an employer brand. Potential employees and candidates can see you out caring about people that just want to start their first job or want to come into your company. So you're kind of doing 2 things at once. And I think that's a great way to think about it. Job posting boards are getting very expensive. I know, and also looking at ways to optimize that, right? Like, is it going to be better for you to post in LinkedIn? Is it going to be better for you to team up with the university and get some of these early graduates into a program with your company? Can you tap into their career center? What's going to save you money to do that? Again, in Indeed, are you paying per click? Is that something that can be, you can get a better cost out of if you change the package that you're using with Indeed? So really, again, taking a step back and looking at the systems that you have in place for recruiting, and also looking at the avenues that are bringing you the best candidates and keep tapping back into that market. Creating competitive pay and benefit packages. This is really interesting. I'm not saying you have to be the highest paying person, but when I say that, I really have been noticing that a lot of ABA therapy centers are doing this kind of starter pay. Come in, we'll pay you X. After 90 days, we'll give you a little bump. After 3 more months, we'll reevaluate you, give you a bump, 6 months, a year. So that first year, there's a lot of nurturing happening and you have a very clear path to somebody being able to start at a decent wage. And as they learn more, as they settle in for you, they have the ability to make more money as they build their skill set. Also benefit packages. In today's world, I know traditional medical, dental, vision packages are so expensive, and you may have 20 employees and you may not be giving benefits, and that's okay. Are there other types of benefits you can give employees, or are there other non-tangible things besides medical, dental, vision that you can do for your employees and call those a benefit? For example, sick days, vacation days, have your birthday off. That is still a benefit. And those benefits and that pay scaling can be part of building your employer brand. It's like, I can't give you everything, and don't focus on that. Let's focus on what we can give you here. And so you can sell those as a benefit to a company. So I really want you, as you build your employer brand, to start thinking about, what do we as a company offer that other companies might not? And let's call that a benefit, and let's scream it from the rooftop so everybody knows we're doing things a little bit differently, or we have a little bit more to offer. Something that's great here is like yoga classes. Some of my clients give $50 a month for wellness, or just a little stipend, and they get to choose what they can use it on. They get reimbursed for gym classes or partnering with a meditation app. That is still a benefit, and it is not thousands and thousands of dollars like a traditional medical, dental, vision package. Now, pro tips. I have these in each area. I want you to be sure you have a streamlined hiring process. Why? Because recruiting employees is difficult, and if your process is broken or it's taking too long, you're going to lose people, interested candidates in that broken process. So streamlining that, looking at that, and digging in a little bit more to make sure it's effective. Things are moving fast. Well, not too fast, but things are moving fast enough that we have candidates that are excited, and we bring them into the company when they're excited. So I know that was a lot, but again, I'm trying to pack in all the goods here on recruiting employees. So if you have any questions, drop them in the chat. We'll address them in a couple minutes. The next section is going to be retaining employees. We have hired these candidates, and now we need to retain them. Why do we need them? Why do we need to retain them? In 2020, the average turnover rate for ABA therapists was 30 to 50%, with most employees leaving within the first year of employment. As I've been researching employees and employee turnover post-pandemic, I will tell you that it used to be the first 90 days were the most critical time. In today's world, the most critical time to retain employees is that first year of employment. And you're probably going, oh my God, now we have to nurture for a year. But yes, it is important that you think about the new workforce and nurturing your new hires for that year period, and it becomes more of a habit for you. Why? Because the average cost of replacing an employee is 1.5 to 2 times their annual salary. This number seems high and dramatic, but in today's market, it is high and dramatic. So again, thinking about how you can make some small adjustments to nurture that first year to get employees again to feel the love and stay with you, so that it saves you time and money and keeps you out of so much of that recruiting process and that kind of revolving door on the front end. Common reasons employees leave. I think we all know this, but I'm just, again, going through the research. It's going to be low wages, lack of career advancement, and job-related stress and burnout. We're seeing a lot of people burn out. And towards the end of this chat, we'll also talk about your burnout as a business owner and what you can do to help combat some of that. So those are the biggest reasons employees are leaving in today's job market. Some solutions you can think about when we talk about retaining employees. We say create a positive work environment that employees want to work in. Again, it's really that supervisor communication. If the scheduling team and the supervisors are the heartbeat of your org, I know we want them working, but we also need to be sure that they're creating a great work environment for your employees to work in. So you want them to have good attitudes. You want to have supervisor meetings, with just the supervisors. You want to make sure you're talking to that group. You're understanding any feedback or challenges the supervisors are having with their teams so that you can stay ahead of the game. Focus on employee motivations. Employee recognition programs. That's a big way of doing this. Little spot bonuses, things and ways to make small amounts of money or small recognition. Hey, this person started, a month ago and they're doing a great job. Let's send out an email and say, hey, we've got this employee of the week, employee of the month, those types of things. So people are seeing, recognition happening for their efforts at work. Employee motivators is something that you can look up. It's going to be recognition, words of affirmation, feeling good. Some people are motivated by money, but just know that not everybody is motivated by the same thing. A lot of the younger workforce are just motivated by seeing you, the business owner, stay committed to the mission and the vision and the values of your company. And that is what keeps them energized. We'll get more into this, but one other solution to retaining employees is going to be having clear, continuous growth and training programs and attach those to pay increases when possible. So what I see here is if we have somebody that's been working for you for a year and we want them to get to the next level, we say do X, Y, and Z, be clear about what X, Y, and Z is. And then once you complete X, Y, and Z successfully, we'll go ahead and give you a pay increase and a pay bump. So that way you're upskilling employees, they're getting a little bit from that and they know what they need to do to get there and they'll work towards those goals. Pro tip here again, these don't have to cost a lot of money. Empathy and small surprises go a long way. Cheesy or not, I oftentimes send my teams randomly or my clients Starbucks gift cards. I send them $10 and I just say something cheesy like, thanks a latte. And people are just like, wow, that was so cool. And I can see them opening those Starbucks gift cards and spending them. So, $10 does go a long way in helping somebody feel like they're seen in that moment. And that is big in today's world. So these are my tips for retaining employees. Again, if you have questions, drop them in the chat. We'll get back over to there. I guess, Adam, I'll just do a quick check. Are there any questions right now, burning questions we need to address around recruiting and retaining employees?
I don't have any in the queue so far.
Okay, cool. Everybody's probably overwhelmed, like drinking coffee. Managing performance. I think this is a great area to focus on. So we recruit employees, we're retaining them, they're working for us. Now we're managing their performance. And what does that mean? How are they working for us? Are they just showing up to work and doing what they have to do? Are they going above and beyond? Like, are they just checking the boxes or are they wanting to do more? So a lot of this here, and again, coming from the ABA world, I think one thing is, these compliance and ethics codes and having plans, remediation plans in place when these violations happen with clear and swift actions to address them. I think when we're talking about compliance issues and letting some of the hanger-oners hang on, they can do more damage to your workforce than just trying to either remediate, coach, and if we can't get to a point where, again, both of our needs are being met, working on that and taking some swift actions to either let the employee go, put them in a different role, do something like that. But you want to be sure that you are managing performance with precision, really, so that one bad apple on the team isn't spoiling the bunch. And I have seen this time and time again, and we all know They say people don't leave their company, they leave their boss. And especially in today's market, your boss is more important than ever. And truly, people don't want bosses, they want leaders. So they want to see some, people skills of leadership. Generational mindset. This is also something to consider when you're managing performance. If you're managing people from older generations, or we're from older generations, I know I'm saying that now, which is crazy to me, but here we are. And we needed less to perform, right? Again, we talk about that loyalty. Our parents had one job their whole lives. We'll probably hang around a little bit longer, right? So older generations need less, but can you give them less? Because then we have this younger generation of workers come in and we want to pour into them, but we don't want anybody to feel left behind. So it's really finding the best way to look at analyze, the generations and the age groups in your workplace. Analyze again those motivators and really see what's working and not working, and figure out what's working, do more of that, and what's not working, drop it fast and keep it moving. And really, we know the vibe trickles down from leadership. Oftentimes, therapy centers don't have one owner, right? I'm the founder of my company. I have a team that works for me, but here, oftentimes there's leadership teams because we can't do it alone. Make sure that you are having meetings with the leadership teams, and the leadership teams are on the same page about the culture they want to build, the core behaviors we want present in our business, and the way we want to communicate as leadership down to the teams to drive performance and build culture. Solutions for this are setting clear and consistent feedback away from praise and recognition. This was so interesting to me, because I helped terminate a woman at a therapist because she wasn't performing. But her feedback was she was so shocked that she was being terminated because all she ever heard was good things about what she was doing. When I went back, this actually wasn't a termination at this point. We needed to do an investigation. So when I went back and investigated, I found that the manager and her supervisor was kind of giving her a lot of good feedback and trying to passively aggressively tell her what she needed to fix. And the employee didn't hear any of that. All they heard was the great feedback. And so she was so shocked she was being terminated. Like, what did I do wrong? And that really drove us to change the entire way they coached employees, where we really separated those two things. Good feedback comes over here. Coaching meetings, it's clear they're coaching meetings, and we're giving them advice on how to improve, and constructive criticism on how to take their performance to the next level, or when performance drops, how to get it back to a level that works for us and the company. But blending those two conversations together can be very damaging if you're not really clear and you're not focused on that assertive communication. Frequent check-ins at early stages to set employees up for success. Again, I talk about this nurturing that first year of employees and what that looks like, but it sometimes just looks like asking them for feedback. How are you feeling? What do you think? Is there any blind spots we're maybe missing? Employee surveys, I think, are a great way to do this. What I will say, though, is you must be transparent about the results. So don't do a survey if you're not ready for very direct and clear feedback from your employee population on what needs to be improved. If you're not there yet, just be honest and don't do the survey. If you're there and you're open-minded and you're ready for results and you're ready to implement change, an employee survey is a great way to show employees you're invested in them and their performance and how they're feeling. And the pro tip here is that when you ask employees for feedback, you don't have to implement everything under the sun. But if you tell them, hey, this is like the biggest thing we saw, and this is the one change we're going to make right now, and we're committed to making one change every quarter based on feedback, that's going to go a really long way. And again, that doesn't cost money, right? So potentially doing something like that can really help build performance, hit your employer brand, build your reputation, and make you a place that people want to work. The last thing we're going to address today is going to be career advancement. So career advancement can be difficult because if you have a smaller organization, how do you create paths for career advancement so employees feel like they're getting somewhere? You make levels, right? And there's levels that employees can achieve. So you can talk about cross-functional jobs. Can somebody go from a clinical role to an administrative role? They know the other side of the house, and maybe they can be an amazing scheduler because they've been out in the field and they know how to schedule. So think about how you can grow people from clinical roles into admin roles or vice versa if they want to. Leverage that is one way to have these lateral moves, which feel like they're learning something new and they're advancing in their careers. Again, if you're small, think of professional development outside of your organization with, the organizations that exist for BAs, BCBAs, and how you can help support them, even if that means, again, just allowing them some time away from work without jeopardizing their job to go, to go to a seminar or do things like that, maybe giving them an allotment of 2 hours a month to work on professional development. Another way to do this is similar to what we're doing today. I mean, just like Adam and Aloha are bringing speakers in from outside of the org, think of the way you can bring speakers in, do pre-recorded videos, just maybe somebody with a ton of experience or, on different topics, right? How to engage kiddos, things like that, that can be learning videos and they feel like you're investing in their growth. Mentors is a great way if you have enough people at the firm, building a little bit of a mentorship program at your company and or doing lunch and learns, again, where we're having these meetings, but everybody's out in the field and they're kind of half listening. They're kind of on their phone. Is there a way to bring them together at a certain place and time where they can really check in to that meeting and lunch and learn together, or even just lunch together to build camaraderie. Clear career pathways. If you're going to do pay increases, add levels. Titles go along with upward moves. So I'll show you what that looks like in an example. Like in the next slide, I have a printout example of this, which means, again, growing. So maybe we have a therapist 1 or an entry level, and then 2, and then a therapist 3, and being clear again with the path and that what needs to happen, the XYZ that needs to happen for you to get there, and the money that's attached to that increase. Okay. So I did have a smaller company that was not in this industry. It's in the design industry, but a lot of their career paths were tied to them getting certifications in their field. The company only has 10 people, but we set clear career paths for their entry-level employees and their mid-level employees. So everybody understood, hey, the playing field is fair for everybody that works here. There's 6 of you, and these are the buttons you need to hit to achieve the next step. And this is how much money you'll make. And we were quite transparent about that. And everybody, because it was such a small company, a lot of them were friends, but then they knew when it came to work, they were all on the same playing field and had the same opportunity at that company to advance and take it to the next step. Clear and transparent communication about how to get there. Again, calling out the specifics on how to get there. So what I'm saying here is the pro tip is create visuals for employees to see steps to advancement. I didn't find one for ABA therapy centers specifically, but I did like this visual. It's pretty easy to make in Canva. And this was a good example where there's very clear goals to go up, to move up the ladder, as we'd say, right, in the corporate world. If you're a manual tester, 0 to 2 years, here's where you're at. And from 2 to 5 years, you go to this title. And from 4 to 6 years, you go to this title. And we can see how, the teams are growing and changing. So if you do have entry level, they know where they are. Or if you have mid-level professionals, they know that they're coming in here at this 4 to 6 year level. And then they're moving up from there because they have all of the qualifications there. And then also that helps the entry level folks to understand, hey, this person's coming in at this green level because they have all of these qualifications. And you can ultimately they could be a mentor to this entry level person to help them get there. So this is a great way to tie all of the principles together when we talk about recruiting, retention, performance management, and career advancement. We can look at them as different buckets, but there's a lot of connective tissue there and a lot of ways to have a downstream impact by approaching one area at a time. And that's the area I would start with for you. I would start with the area that's got the biggest amount of pain points for you. So speaking about you, talking about you and being an ABA leader, right? In today's world, the focus is on employees. How do you serve them? But the real question is, how do you serve you? I want you to know that a lot of times when I'm working with leaders, and a lot of the times why I do love to focus on women-led companies, and now I'm seeing this more even as I'm working with male leaders, is that you're exhausted. We're give. What are we getting back? What's happening? Is the juice worth the squeeze, right? And so I pulled a statistic just to let you know that 39% of entrepreneurs report a sense of disillusionment with their business. We're tired, we're burnt out, we have our families at home, we're in the business and we're not working on the business, and we can't step away to get things done. And ultimately, that probably can hurt you more than help you. So here's just some solutions in my experience of working with ABA leaders and working with leaders in today's competitive job market. Create a strong leadership team. Delegate. Learn to work on the business and not in the business. I know we say that all the time, but what does that mean? Can you give a little bit more work to a supervisor or more autonomy to somebody, or delegate something from your level to an admin so that it frees up more of your time to be a little bit more strategic, or just to meet with people that can help you build strategy around your business when it's not your specialty. So for instance, outsourcing work that's not your specialty, build a team of fractional resources to lean into. A lot of my smaller clients do this, and this is how I work with them. I do HR. They have an outsourced finance team that helps them with bookkeeping and payroll. Or they have a PEO that helps them with some of this stuff. But if you're a leader and you're trying to save money and build a handbook and you're not aware of compliance, or you're trying to address these things and you're not in touch with the market trends, it could really just burn you out even more and take more time. So really lean into other professionals that can help you. They don't necessarily need to be full-time employees to give you some support. And I think that's really big in today's market. As I'm talking with more leaders, we're spending more money on labor and cost. Getting these fractional resources in to help are great. Networking with your peers. I have seen a lot of ABA and therapy center leaders really, besides networking and going to conferences, doing things like retreats where they're talking about their business in a more relaxed place. They're exchanging ideas with one another. They're really disconnecting and reconnecting. And that has been pretty successful, especially in your industry where empathy and giving back and serving other people is just such a big part of your business. The other thing that I think is very basic, but again, we don't take a lot of time to do, is taking the time to set up systems and processes to eliminate manual, repeatable work. Again, how complex is your hiring process? Is that streamlined? When we talk about writing people up, how complex is this write-up form that you have? They don't need to be complex, crazy, or complicated to be impactful. Can you leverage a system more to save time and energy and hours of man time from your team? And a lot of the times I see this a little bit on the clinical side on working on efficiencies, but a lot of times it's all the administrative things that we've always done that way, and we haven't taken time to iterate and improve on the admin side. So I think there's a big opportunity for you guys there.
Hey,
And
Robin, real quick,
yeah,
I'll just jump in. That leads right into one of the questions that we have in the Q&A. So I don't know if you want to jump on it now or later once you're completed, but it says, do you have any recommendations for an employee tracking suite beyond Excel? So it's kind of going into your topic of software and processes that you can have in place.
yeah, definitely. And I think that that's great. What I see happening here and what becomes challenging in this world is you guys have ABA software for scheduling, checking in meetings, all of those things, tracking absences, etc. And then I see a lot of that getting exported into Excel while we're running a concurrent HR system to track HR and have HR compliance, actually run payroll, and do all of those things. So I think the opportunity here is to look at what you can integrate and what HR system you're using, what can be automated there, or can we automate something in the ABA tracking system? And then what are the holes and how do we plug into those holes? So I think that's an excellent question and a big challenge, because a lot of times we're extrapolating data from two systems into Excel, and then the Excel spreadsheets get crazy. So how can we maybe set up custom fields for better tracking and reporting purposes? Hopefully that helps. And really my pro tip here is how you know as a leader that everything is kind of dialed in or you're getting to a better place is you should be able to go on a longer vacation each time without things imploding, right? So I measure this is a measure of success when you're a leader and you have a business. If you can step away for a vacation day, great. If you could step away for 3 in 4 months from now, even better. It really just shows progress. So again, great way to track the team's progress and your ability to delegate, let go of some things, and just make small changes that have a big impact in your company is by tracking your own time that you have to, put back into your own family and alleviate a lot of your own burnout. So yeah, that's it, Adam. I don't know. Are there any other questions? We're to the questions section here. Again, I went fast and furious. I hope I gave you some great information. This QR code here is for me and my company. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I will answer any questions. We can have a 15-minute chat. So anything you need.
I think one of the other questions that I've noticed just from, in the ABA space is that, there are a lot of practices that have center-based programs running, and so the teams can be together. And there are also other companies out there, not in the ABA space, that do work remotely. For example, like I work remotely. I'm assuming you work remotely as well. But the remote work in ABA is also unique in that they are 2 steps isolated. So they're working remotely, and they can also be exclusively in the home of a client 100% of the time. They're not collaborating throughout the day on like a Teams or an instant chat messenger or things like that. So I'm wondering how your thoughts on building a cohesive team, making people feel like they're part of a team, even when it can so easily feel like you're just kind of on your own in a home, an RBT, just kind of isolated. And so I know those feelings of isolation can lead to further burnout or kind of dissatisfaction in the job whenever it may be a stressful case that you're working on, or that type of burnout. So I'm just interested in your thoughts on like how to like overcome that as a business owner or an HR professional, trying to like still make people feel like they're part of a team.
Yeah, I think that's a really great question, because we have these field employees, and what I see is everybody goes and focuses on the clients and the kiddos, and we're not worried about nurturing those employees. And I think that there's an opportunity here for those field workers to say, hey, let me take you out to lunch today, or let me pay you an hour of admin time. And then we have an event where we even just people log in and call, and we're kind of building that camaraderie. So I like to think of it as, I am a firm believer that a hybrid workplace is the way of the future. 100% remote, I don't know. We need people checking in because you need to feel connected. And then when you have, which is the same as having a field employee, right? If we're just throwing somebody on an island and we're not checking in with them and we're not nurturing that relationship, they are going to feel isolated. So really taking time, and sometimes, unfortunately, that does mean you may have to give an hour or 2 of admin time for that person to feel like they're included in some activity in the company, even if it's something like you call in and have a game night. That's something you can do. I did that. We're all remote. I did a program myself. I was an attendee, and we were all remote all over the world. And we had an hour where we did a murder mystery, which was not related to the business at all, but it was so fun. It was, we all called in remotely, but they built teams, and we were all teams. We went to our little sessions and we worked together, and then we as our little team groups, and then we came back and did that. So think about, again, those are unique ways to just continue to build team camaraderie and make sure that person feels connected to the humans that are running the businesses. They're supervisors. Beyond that, they're leaders at the company.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think all of that's fantastic. I think that from my experience as well, a couple things that I've seen be pretty successful in different places is having like a buddy system, having a new person that's buddied up, not a supervisor to them, but somebody who's maybe like an experienced peer. They can have check in on that person from time to time. I think that puts them in a more open position where they feel like they can have an honest chat with a peer. So I think that's great. And I also think that I've seen like skip level meetings or, ways like if you have like somebody who's like an administrative assistant, somebody who's answering the phones, and maybe their goal is to eventually become a biller or become a director or a manager, giving them those mentorship opportunities where you try and pair them with somebody at a more experienced level within the organization that can try and give them those stepping stones to get to that next career level. How earlier you're talking about like career advancement and things like that. I think that's a fantastic way to keep people engaged at any level of the organization, is to show them that there are opportunities for advancement and there's involvement and interest in the company to help them achieve those things. So I think that, buddy systems can be very helpful, and mentorship programs can be super helpful as well. And those don't cost a lot, but they're really appreciated if you find the right people. And then the other thing that you're going to get is the people that stay with your company are the people who are really invested professionally, that they really want to be there, and you're investing time and resources into those people that will hopefully stay at your organization for a long time and make a big impact as well. So I think those are good things to do also.
Yeah. Also, the thing you can do is, look, sometimes it's death by meeting, right? So I really try when we get to these other things is to focus on just like, I would really say dumb, but mundane fun stuff that people, think of. Like I had a company that was all remote, and they just took a night and they did a pickleball lesson, and everybody loved that. That went over everybody loved that. In today's world too, you have to remember like happy hours and things companies are moving away from drinking at work or drinking on the job. So activities like pickleball, a paint night, again, this virtual murder mystery, those are great. But other things that can be modeled after at larger companies are what they call ERGs, or clubs of fun things. So there was another company I worked with, and they had a book club, and it wasn't anything related to therapy. It was just an outside book. Somebody picked a book, they voted on it, and they all did a book club. And that was a way for the more introverted staff to connect. And then, so you can really model that around people's hobbies, which I think is a great way to do that. Also, to your point of the mentorship, if you don't want to formalize a program, but you're saying you have somebody that wants a job, like let's say they're an admin assistant and they want a job in scheduling, you can do a day in the life of, and put that admin assistant to sit maybe half the day and see what the scheduling team does. And then just ask them to be real honest. Do you still want that job or not? Sometimes we think like, oh, it's so cool, until we sit there and see what's really happening. And then we don't want to do that. So I think that those are all great ways to kind of, again, low cost, big impact of ways of filling your employees' cup, making them feel like they're being heard without it being such a big commitment of time from the leadership to show up for the team.
That's great. Don't see any other questions in here, so I'll give just another moment. If anybody has any questions, feel free to throw them in. As I mentioned in the beginning, we're going to send out a copy of the recording. We'll send out the slide decks. Somebody in the chat asked earlier about the previous meeting for the Marketing 101. So you can go any of these items for either today's presentation or ones in the past. There's a resource tab on alohaaba.com where you can find all of the videos that have happened in the past. You can find the on-demand recordings of them. And then you can also go to the resource tab to see upcoming calendar events for future events like this on different topics. So I'll be sure to send that out in the follow-up email, copy of the recording, the slide decks, and the links to see either the previous on-demands or the future calendar. So if anybody has any interest, feel free to check that out.
One thing I do want to address is I'm going back now and taking a minute while you're talking to look at the chat. You responded to Dawn and said that Aloha uses Gusto. I want to tell you that I am not a Gusto partner. I met the CEO. He's a fantastic guy. I love Gusto for my clients. Why? Because like I said, a streamlined hiring process, you can do background checks in Gusto. You know, you can automate the hiring process before an employee walks in the door. You can send them their package. You can upload documents. You can have them e-sign. Like, I really do think, Adam, I mean, I love you guys too, right? But when we talk about leveraging systems and utilizing them to the best of their abilities so they work in tandem well, you know, Aloha's great, Gusto's great, and again, filling in the gaps and leveraging those two systems and their strengths is fantastic. So I am a huge fan of Gusto. I do think a lot of ABA centers do look at PEOs and get on PEOs. There's some challenges around that. They might help up front. So if anybody has specific, more in-depth questions about systems and processes like that, please reach out to me and I'll give you my best advice.
Trying to see if we have any other questions in the chat. I see one about asking if specifically if Aloha, so maybe somebody out there might be a practice management customer of Aloha, asking if we integrate with Gusto. We do have integrations for different like HR tools, and Gusto is one of them. So if you happen to be an Aloha customer, you happen to use Gusto as well, we do have an integration between the two systems where you can use both. So I can reach out specifically to the person that posed the question. I'll send you an email to reach out maybe to like your CSM. I can find out who your contact is and I can give you some instructions on how to set that up if you need it.
Awesome. Don wants one too. And hey, Don, I hope I answered your question earlier. I hope you got what you needed from that. So thanks for asking away. Oh, awesome. Okay, Don uses Gusto and Aloha.
Yeah, I'm also not a paid person from Gusto, but I know that our team loves it. And I'm in some of the Facebook groups, which may be how some of you heard about this, but I see a lot of that similar question come up as far as like HR tools and things like that. And that's the most commonly recommended one that I see among ABA practices and professionals is Gusto. So for what that's worth, that's the one that I see being thrown around there. Our team also uses them, and I've only heard good things from our HR team as well.
Yeah, great.
Okay, everybody. Well, I really appreciate you all joining today. Hopefully you got a lot of value out of it. I know I learned a lot as well. So appreciate you joining. I'll send out an email shortly after this. Again, the recording, the slides, the previous on-demand sessions, and the future calendar as well. So we hope to see you guys again in the future. Thanks, everyone. And thanks, Robyn. Appreciate it.
For having me. Have a good one. Bye.
Have a great day, everybody.